The movie starts off with a beautiful view of Italy. The sun shines brightly as people walk around the bustling city. We can hear a girl narrating in the background. Her name is Lena, and she talks in memory of her mother, who recently passed away. Lena talks about her mom. Her mother always used to tell her that you never forget your first love, which Lena never really understood. But Lena's mother never talked about her first love. Instead, she only ever talked about her last moments, which is why Lena feels the story of her mother's first love is a mysterious one. Lena attends the funeral of her mother. Given how much her mother adored her, she feels really terrible. Her mother had a few minor wishes before she passed away, and Lena wants to make sure they get fulfilled. At her funeral, the first rule is that no one should mourn, and no one should wear black. Since Lena's mother doesn't like anyone to be depressed, and prefers everyone to be joyful, even her burial and coffin are decorated in a pumpkin spice theme, as that's her favorite flavor. Live music is also being played in the background, in order to honor her. Lena's mother, Hadley, said her last wish was for Lena to go to Rome at least once, but Lena has no intention of going there. But since she loves her mother a lot, Lena decides to go to Rome anyway. Hesitantly, she makes up a plan for getting there, and exploring all the places that her mother wanted to. Lena wants to take her friend Addie along with her, but her mother wanted her to go alone. Lena respects that wish, and finally, she gets ready to go. Eventually, Lena reaches Italy, where she meets Hadley's best friend, Francesca. Francesca receives her in a comical way, and the two drive off together. Francesca and Lena then arrive at a university, where they meet Howard. Howard was also a very dear friend of Hadley's. When Howard sees Lena, he is surprised, because she looks exactly like her mother. Howard gives her Hadley's old camera, and tells her that Hadley was an amazing photographer, who loved to take photos. She enjoyed taking pictures, and adored capturing moments and scenes. As Lena is talking to both of them, a boy comes along and starts talking to Howard. His name is Lorenzo, and he happens to be Howard's student. Howard had previously encouraged him to go and participate in a very prestigious cooking competition, because Lorenzo really wants to be a chef. On the other hand, Lena sees a very good-looking boy. He notices her too and walks up to her. The boy, whose name is Alessandro, starts to chat with Lena. He then asks her if she is an American. Lena replies that she is, and tries to talk to him as well, but she's very nervous. Lena hasn't even conversed with the boy before. She confesses this to Alessandro, who makes her feel comfortable. Lena starts to like Alessandro, and finally bids him goodbye. After that, Lena and Francesca go home, and Francesca takes Lena to Hadley's old room. Hadley used to stay there all the time. Lena looks around the room, and feels her mother's presence there. She starts to get emotional, and that's when Francesca gives her Hadley's diary. Lena becomes uneasy because she does not want to think about the past. She tells Francesca that she doesn't want to read it, but Francesca insists that she read it. The next morning, Lena opens her mother's diary, where she has recorded each and every moment of her life. In her diary, she talks about Italy's ethereal beauty, the lovely people there, and even the delicious food. She even talks about her friends, Howard and Francesca. Lena continues to read the diary, and starts to get emotional. Right then, her phone rings, and she receives the call to find out that it's none other than Alessandro. She is shocked at how he got her number. Lena asks him where he got her number from, and that's when he says that he got her number from social media. She's stunned to hear that, because she hates social media. Lena has always been very shy, so she never made any social media profiles. She quickly opens her phone, and discovers that there's a whole Instagram profile of her with numerous followers. Lena is flabbergasted to see that. That's when she realizes that it was Addie who created her profile on all different kinds of social media. She is frustrated, but doesn't say anything. Alessandro then invites her to his house party, but she refuses. He's very rich and parties with a lot of socialites. Lena knows this and tells him that she hates social gatherings, but Alessandro keeps on insisting. Because of this, Lena agrees, and Francesca offers to get her ready for the high-class party. Lena goes to Alessandro's party, and there she sees him waiting for her. He cheerily receives her, and together they enter the party and start enjoying themselves. However, when Alessandro's father comes there, he shows no hesitation in mocking Lena. He insults her as well, which causes Lena to become very upset and distraught. Alessandro's father is a very rich man, who judges people according to their status. Lena notices this and walks away from there. She goes from there, only to find Lorenzo, who happens to be working as a bartender at the party. There, he exclaimed that since they've met, he wants to help her clean herself off. Lena thanks him for the gestures. Lorenzo even offers to drop her off, which she gladly accepts. As they're driving away, the two come across a small restaurant. It seems very cozy, so Lorenzo asks Lena to wait outside. She's confused but nonetheless agrees. That's when he tells her that the restaurant has amazing pastries, which will definitely cheer her up. An old woman greets them there and hands them a package. The two start eating, and Lena is stunned to find how good the cake tastes. It starts to get late, so Lorenzo drops her off. When they finally arrive at Lena's house, they see Alessandro there as well. Lena is shocked to see him there. Alessandro apologizes for his father's rude demeanor and invites her to another place so that they could meet again. It seems he likes her too. The next day, Alessandro comes to receive her, and the two go to a big waterfall. Lena is really afraid of heights and refuses to go near the edge, but Alessandro takes her to jump in the river anyway. He reassures her that she'll be alright, and thus the two jump in. It's really fun, and both of them giggle with happiness. Lena is also glad that she has finally won over her fear. Suddenly, Alessandro confesses that he likes her. Lena also likes him, so she starts to kiss him. After that, both of them return home, and Lena immediately calls Addie to tell her how she feels about Alessandro. She tells Addie all about their encounter and the kiss, but Addie isn't convinced. She doesn't want her friend to get hurt. Soon after, Addie begins to search for him on social media. She follows him and tries to learn everything she can about him. That's when she stumbles across Alessandro's Instagram account. Addie starts looking at his pictures and finds out that he has shared some pictures with another girl. Lena is hurt to see that he's on a date with someone else, while Addie realizes he's definitely not the right one for Lena. On the other hand, Lena starts to think she's not enough, and that Alessandro is just another playboy. This makes her enraged. Lena runs out of the house in her messy attire and goes to the elite restaurant that Alessandro is at. She walks up to him and confronts him. She calls him a crook who has no regard for others' feelings and even curses him out. Lena calls him out for using her and treating her like nothing more than a fling. She feels really hurt and sobs uncontrollably. Alessandro tries to tell her that it's not what she thinks and that the girl is just his friend, but Lena doesn't believe him at all. Lena insults him and then walks out. Alessandro tries to stop her, but she's too mad to even listen to him. She is so sad and lonely after this awful incident that she goes home and hides in her room. Lena starts missing her mother a lot and cries. She starts to read her mother's diary once more for comfort. Lena continues reading on until she comes to the part where Hadley mentions her first love. Hadley talks about her true love there, who proposed to her, and even mentions how they were so happy and in love. Lena is stunned to read this, as her mother had never talked to her about it at all. Hadley and her lover found solace in each other, but soon, this changed. Lena reads the diary, where it is mentioned that Hadley's lover started to ignore her. When she got pregnant, Hadley was ecstatic, but her lover wanted no part in the child's life. He ran away and never called her back. Hadley was so sad and unhappy after this incident that she never mentioned the man anymore. She never kept his name in her diary. Instead, she only gave him the name X. She never even shared any of it with anyone, except her dear friends, Howard and Francesca. After going through the diary, Lena finally starts to sympathize with her mother. She starts to feel her mother's pain, because she's also going through the same pain. Her father had been just like Alessandro. Lena starts to get tired of thinking about Alessandro and her mother, so she goes to the same bakery where Lorenzo took her. There, she requests the old lady to give her the same pastry that Lorenzo had treated her with, but the bakery lady refuses it. Lena is so hurt by this refusal that she starts to cry. She's really exhausted, because she wanted to suppress all the pain. The old lady sees Lena in distress and feels bad for her. Because of this, she gives the poor girl some pastry. Lena gladly takes it and goes to eat the pastry all alone. She starts eating it while crying incessantly. This is her first heartbreak, and all her feelings come crashing down. Lena thinks about her mother and how she hid all aspects of her life. While Lena sits alone and eats her pastry, Howard starts searching for her. He panics because he can't find her anywhere. Finally, he sees her eating the cake all alone and crying to herself. Howard goes up to her and asks her what's wrong, but Lena doesn't tell him about Alessandro at all. Lena can't seem to think about anything else. She begins to feel that she's going to have the same life as her mother. Lena looks at Howard and asks him about love. She inquires if he ever fell in love with anyone. This question seems to have taken him aback. Howard goes numb and tells her that he did. They go to Howard's friend's house for lunch, where Francesca tells Lena that she'll love the food there. Lena is really excited about it, and Francesca goes on to tell her that she will forget all that's happened to her. There, she proposes to start a new chapter of her life. While going to Howard's friend's house, Lena continues reading the diary. She reads it all, and that's when she finds out more about Hadley's pregnancy. She reads that after Hadley got pregnant, her lover came to her and apologized to her for being late. He also admits to Hadley that he loves her and is ready to accept the baby as his. This piques Lena's interest, and she goes on reading it. Lena is shocked as she sees the name Howie mentioned. She thinks that it was Howard all along. Because of all this, Lena begins to assume that Howard is her father, and that it was he who betrayed her mother. When the three finally reach Howard's friend's home, Lena is surprised to see Lorenzo there. It turns out that Howard's friend is none other than Lorenzo's mother. There, she meets his extended family, and even his dear grandmother, who seems to be very stern. The house smells amazing, because something delicious is cooking there. Lena goes to the kitchen with his grandmother and observes everything. That's where she sees Lorenzo and his grandmother making gelato, which looks absolutely incredible and tasty. Lorenzo mentions that it's his grandmother's secret recipe, and tells her about it, except for one ingredient. The two start to make gelato together, which gets them really close, but just then Georgia comes in. She is Lorenzo's ex, who's still in love with him. Georgia and Lorenzo were best friends, who dated for a very long time. Seeing Lena and Lorenzo so close angers Georgia, and she starts passing snide comments towards the two. Lorenzo and Lena both get really awkward, so they go to lunch together. All three of them join the others at the lunch table. while Lena is still very upset after finding out Howard is her biological father. She feels that Howard was the one who betrayed her mother and left her stranded. This makes Lena really angry, and so she starts being really mean to everyone around there. She can't handle her emotions any longer, which causes her to get up from the dining table. Lena has a breakdown and misbehaves with everyone. She starts crying and talking about how her mother has always been lonely because Howard isn't man enough to accept his child. She blames him for never having a father figure in her life. Lena goes to call him heartless for not meeting Hadley, even when she took her last breath. Lena then flees the scene. Everyone at the table feels really sad for her because she has no family, and the only one she could call is no more. They realize how lonely she is. Francesca then insists Howard talk to her and tell her the truth. Howard is really hesitant about it all, but Francesca forces him to go up to Lena. She begs him to tell her the truth because he never got the chance to confess his feelings to Hadley. Howard understands this and runs after Lena. Howard follows Lena and sees her crying in a corner. He goes up to Lena, but she is so angry with him that she doesn't even look at him properly. Lena then asks him why he betrayed her mother and what caused him to leave her alone. She claims that she knows about him being her father. Howard stops her right there and admits to being her father, just not her biological one. Howard finally musters up the courage and tells Lena that he really did love Hadley. He loved her a lot, but she was in love with someone else. Hadley had fallen for Lena's father. Lena is shocked to hear that. She asks him to tell her in detail, and that's when Howard tells her that it was another man who used Hadley and threw her to the curb. He then tells Lena that he really loves her as his daughter, even though she's not his blood. Lena finally sees the truth and apologizes profusely to Howard. She then asks him who her real father is. Howard sighs and tells her the truth. He tells her that her father's name is actually Matteo Fossi, who happens to be a very renowned art gallery owner. He used to be Hadley's photography professor, as Hadley loved photography. That's how they met, and Hadley ended up falling for Matteo. But Matteo was never in love with Hadley. He had only used her for one night. Lena is crushed after hearing all this. Howard eventually advises Lena to stay out of his life because he is not a good man. He also apologizes to Lena for hiding this really large portion of her life because that's what Hadley wanted. She didn't want her daughter to meet her father, but rather wished for Lena to find her true self. After finding out the whole truth, Lena apologizes to both Francesca and Howard. They forgive her, and all three of them return home. When they reach home, Lena and Francesca see Alessandro in front of them. Francesca gets really mad at Alessandro for treating Lena really badly. She threatens to hurt him, but Lena stops her just in time. She asks to be left alone with Alessandro, so Francesca and Howard walk away. Lena then glares at Alessandro to go away, but he doesn't budge. He begs her to give him a chance to explain, but Lena doesn't want to listen to him at all. She asks him to go, but Alessandro starts explaining to her that he didn't betray her and that the girl with him was just his friend. He then says to Lena that he only loves her. Lena blushes at that and tells him to go because she needs time to think. Alessandro respects her decision and walks away. Lena runs back to her bedroom and starts thinking about her mother and Howard. She feels bad because they both loved each other, but could never confess their feelings. That's when Lena pulls out her laptop and decides to find out about Mr. Fossi. She wants to ask him why he betrayed her mother and left her pregnant. She does some thorough research and then goes to sleep, because the next morning she plans to go see him. The next day, she goes to the station, and when she reaches the place, she meets Lorenzo again. The two greet each other happily, and that's when Lorenzo asks Lena if she's also going to Florence. She replies that she is, and then she goes on to apologize to him for misbehaving with his family the other day. Lorenzo forgives her in an instant. Lena then asks him if he's going to Florence for his audition. Lorenzo says that he is, so Lena reassures him, saying it'll go great, since his food is amazing. She even compliments Lorenzo's food, saying he's going to be a really famous cook one day. Lorenzo thanks her, but then notices how upset she looks. He asks Lena if she's okay since she looks so numb and tense. Lena doesn't really say much to that, and just sighs that she's fine. The two get seated on the train, and Lena starts to tell Lorenzo all about Hadley. She tells him all about her mother and her complicated love life. Lena even tells him that she now finally knows who her biological father is. She's really nervous, but also very adamant about meeting him at least once. She wants answers to all her questions. Lena then tells Lorenzo that her mother never told her about Matteo Fossi. She goes on to say that she can finally understand why her mother didn't tell her about him. All these years, Matteo had not once tried to come into contact with Hadley. He wanted nothing to do with Lena either. He never even tried to contact them. This really breaks Lena, but she somehow manages to compose herself. After the initial conversation, Lorenzo asks Lena what her expectations are towards Fossi when she finally gets to meet him, to which Lena replies that she doesn't really know what she will do. She seems confused about it all, and exclaims that maybe he has changed now. Lena hopes and prays that her father is a changed man now, and that he'll be really happy to see his daughter. Hadley always told Lena that people can change. Maybe now, Mr. Fossi might accept her. Lena then tells Lorenzo that when her mother came to Italy, her whole life changed. Lena hopes to have that happen to her as well. She confesses that she wants answers from her father. She wants to get the love she deserves. Lena continues by saying that Hadley lost almost everything she had because of her. It was because of Lena that Hadley never got to be with Howard, the man who truly loved her. Just then, Lorenzo assures her, saying that her mother never lost her anything. In fact, she gained a lot because she loved Lena so much. He asks her not to give it much thought. As the ride goes on, Lorenzo notices that Lena is really nervous. Because of this, he gives her some gelato in order to cheer her up. It's the same gelato that he has prepared to present before his audience at the audition. As Lena tastes the gelato, she falls in love with it and eats it all, not knowing that the gelato is supposed to decide Lorenzo's fate. Lorenzo doesn't stop her either, after seeing how much she likes it. The two then get off at the station, where Lorenzo tells Lena that his audition will start in the afternoon. Till then, he offers to give a tour of the beautiful city of Florence. They both go on to visit all the local places here. He eventually takes her to a local organic shop, where they thoroughly enjoy themselves. And after visiting lots of places, the two go to an art gallery together. Lena starts to get emotional after seeing all the art there. She really likes it. After a grand tour, Lorenzo and Lena go to a nearby restaurant and have lunch while enjoying each other's company. Lena enjoys every moment with Lorenzo, and Lorenzo also has fun with her. It seems as if Lorenzo truly loves Lena. After their lunch, Lorenzo takes Lena to his favorite place in Florence. That's where all the local farmers get their produce from. Lena then notices how intelligent he is. Lorenzo has a lot of knowledge about all sorts of food varieties, which he keenly explains to Lena. Lena listens to it all, and after a while, she suddenly asks him about Georgia. At first, Lorenzo completely ignores the question, but then goes on to say that he and Georgia are really good friends. They spent their entire childhood together and began dating about 2 years ago. But soon, multiple problems came up, and they became on and off. Georgia started going to numerous racing programs in Bologna, and it eventually became really difficult for the two to maintain a healthy long-distance relationship. Lena feels really sorry for him, and finally, Lorenzo tells her that they broke up last summer. Lena then apologizes to Lorenzo for interfering, but he says it's all right. Curiosity gets the best of her, so Lena asks Lorenzo about his relationship with Alessandro. Lorenzo gets really gloomy, and the air starts to get really awkward. At first, he completely tries to deny having any sort of relationship with Alessandro, and says nothing happened between the two, but Lena can see through it all. Finally, Lorenzo explains to her that they were best friends in the past. Soon, Alessandro made a new friend who hated Lorenzo. One day, that very friend insulted his mother, but Alessandro stayed quiet through it all. He never stood up for Lorenzo, and ever since then, their friendship came to a halt, and they now hate each other. Lena understands his point and stays silent. Suddenly, a bell rings, and Lorenzo says that it's time for his audition. He doesn't want to be late, so he tries to run as fast as he can. But before leaving, he tells her to go to her father's art gallery. He tells her all about it, and wishes Lena all the best before finally parting ways. The two bid each other goodbye and even encouraged each other to do their best. After that, Lena enters her father's art gallery. She's really nervous and jittery when a woman comes to her. The lady welcomes her to the gallery while Lena continues to look around. Right then, she sees her mother's picture and starts crying. The picture is absolutely stunning, and all her memories with Hadley come flooding back. After seeing Lena's tears, the lady asks who she is and why she's there, to which Lena replies that she's Mr. Fosse's daughter. The lady is stunned as Lena's body starts shaking and quivering. She can't control herself any longer. Lena then tells the lady that she really wants to meet him. On the other hand, Lorenzo finally enters the audition. He sees 3 chefs standing before him, which makes him really nervous. They ask him which dish he has brought from home for them to taste. Lorenzo sounds very nervous and tells them that he has nothing. But then he asks for a chance to prove his worth. He offers to make a dish for them right there, but the chefs immediately reject him and insult him on his way out. Lorenzo is disappointed and walks away, upset and agitated. Inside the art gallery, Lena waits patiently for her father to call her so that they can finally meet. She watches her mother's photo and admires her beauty. After a while, Lena comes to find out that Mr. Fosse doesn't want to meet her. In fact, he denies even having a daughter. Fosse claims that Lena is not his daughter since he just used Hadley and never really loved or cared for her. This enraged Lena, and she goes barging into his office. She sees him sitting there and feels nothing but emptiness. That's when Lena realizes that her mother was nothing more than a commodity to him. Lena walks away and takes her mother's photo with her on her way out. The lady tries to stop Lena, but to no avail. After the awful encounter, Lena is very upset and waits for Lorenzo to come back. Lorenzo eventually comes to her and asks her what happened. Lena doesn't say much about it except a much-deserved curse word. She then asks him about the audition, and Lorenzo tells her about his experience. Lena is shocked to hear this, and requests that he speak to the judges, but he declines, saying that it's of no use. Both of them look really sad, and that's when Lena realizes that Lorenzo got disqualified because of her. She ate all the gelato that Lorenzo had for the audition. Because of this, he didn't have anything to offer the chefs. Lena feels terrible about it, Nonetheless, they wipe each other's tears and smile. Both are upset and disappointed to have lost their own battles. They weep and look at each other. Suddenly, the two start getting closer and closer. They slowly kiss each other. Lorenzo completely falls for Lena at that moment. He then drops Lena off at her home, but that's when Lena apologizes to him for what happened earlier in the station. She claims that the kiss was just a mistake, and that she didn't mean it. Lorenzo feels really bad after hearing that, because he truly loves Lena. He slowly walks away, while thinking that Lena doesn't feel the same about him. Meanwhile, Lena goes to her room. Howard enters the room as well, and starts to inquire about Mr. Fosse. Lena just sighs and exclaims that he is not a good person. She tells him that he didn't even want to acknowledge her as his daughter. Fosse had also flatly denied ever knowing Hadley. This hurts Lena a lot, and she doesn't want to stay there anymore. She wants to go back to the US and complete her graduation. Lena wishes to forget everything and move on, because she feels like she has finally known the truth of her life. She then returns her mother's camera, saying that she doesn't need it and thanks Howard for giving it to her. Francesca comes in just then and hears everything. She doesn't want Lena to go, and asks Howard to stop her, but he says that he can't stop her forcefully. Francesca then says to Howard that he has regarded himself as a failure all his life, because he couldn't stop Hadley. She begs him not to do it again. In all honesty, Hadley never sent Lena to Italy in order to find her father. She actually wanted Lena to meet Howard, because only after Fosse betrayed her, Hadley had realized that Howard really loved her. She considered Howard to be Lena's true father. The next morning, Lena packs her stuff and begins to leave. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, and Lena opens the door to find none other than Addie there in Italy. Both of them scream in excitement and start hugging each other. They cry together, and Lena asks Addie what she's doing there. Howard had called Addie to come to Italy so that they could stop Lena. After seeing Addie there, Lena decides to stay back. Howard and Francesca are happy with that decision. That's when Howard jokingly asks her if she's willing to adopt him as her father. Lena gets very emotional at that, and readily agrees. Francesca tells Lena that Hadley has always considered them family. Maybe that's why she wanted Lena to come there, so that she could finally have a happy family. Actually, Hadley wanted it, so it's happening now. Everyone seems really happy. Lena is also relieved that she has everyone she loves right in front of her. Lena remembers Fosse at that moment, and says that he doesn't deserve to be her father. She declares Howard to be her father, because Hadley adored him. She then tells Addie all about Lorenzo and even Alessandro. Addie teases Lena for having so many boys after her, but then also advises her to go with Lorenzo, because Alessandro isn't really being truthful. He could turn out to be just like his father. Lena sighs and doesn't know what to do. Addie then tells Lena that tonight is Alessandro's house graduation party. They've been invited as well, and the two decide to go. Lena wants to figure out who to choose. Addie says that she got all this information from Lena's fake profile, which she created. Lena is shocked and starts to back out of the plan. She doesn't want to face him, but Addie forces her to. Lena is finally convinced and agrees to go. Back home, Lena continues to read her mother's diary, and on the last page, she sees that Hadley has written about Italy and Howard. There, she finally confesses that she loves Howard, because he is a very nice boy, but Hadley had sadly never noticed his love for her. Lena also finds a small key on the last page of the diary. Italy has a tradition that if anyone attaches a padlock to one of the bridges there, and throws the key into a well, then their love will never end. Lena realizes this and goes to the bridge, where she sees a lock. Lena tries the key on different padlocks, and finally one opens. When Lena looks at the backside of the lock, she sees Howard written there. Lena finally understands everything. Eventually, Addie and Lena both go to Alessandro's house party. There, Alessandro welcomes them, and Lena tries to explain to him that he is not good for her. She tells him that even though she likes him, she can't be with him because of his family. They hate her, and he can't stand up to them. That's when Georgia comes up to Lena and tries to blame her for Lorenzo leaving Italy. She says that Lorenzo is moving to Paris forever. Lena is devastated to hear that, so she runs out of the party and towards Lorenzo. Alessandro doesn't say anything because, deep down, he knows that she's right. Addie and Lena both hurriedly go to the stations, where they spot Lorenzo. Lena stops him, and Lorenzo is surprised to see her in front of him. He sees that Lena is really happy and excited to talk to him, which makes him happy as well. Lena confesses that she loves him as well. She tells him that their kiss wasn't a mistake. Lorenzo is really happy to hear that, but he now has to go to Paris in order to continue his career. Lena understands that and bids him goodbye. She then finally finishes her mother's diary, where Hadley tells her to stay in Italy forever as a true Italian woman. Hadley wishes for Lena to always stay happy and live among her family. Afterwards, Lena takes the lock and shows it to Howard. She tells him that he is Hadley's true love. Howard is shocked to hear that, because he thought that his love had always been one-sided. Howard finally realizes that Hadley loved him a lot, and he's ecstatic. He is upset not to have Hadley among them, but he still has Lena. Howard then tells Lena that he'll always remember Hadley, as he weeps. After that, Lena tells Howard that she wants to accept him as her father and live in Italy forever. That's really good news for everyone there. A year later, Lena comes back to the same place, where she used to eat those delicious cakes. She looks like a beautiful Italian girl now. Lena starts taking photos with her mother's camera as she wants to continue her mother's passion. She appears to be content in Italy. Lena reaches the old lady's cafe to see that it's closed. She's really sad about that. That's when Lorenzo comes up behind her and tells her that he's purchased this bakery. Both of them laugh in happiness and walk away together. The movie ends with them starting a small life of their own and owning a small bakery.